Hi, this is Leighton Ginn, and I'm very excited here. First of all, happy holidays to everyone. And I have a special interview here with Tamar Springer, who is a filmmaker. Her first outing was a fabulous documentary called More Than Santa Baby. And she has a very personal, it's a very personal film because it's about her father who wrote Santa Baby. And this is just perfect for the holidays. It's one of the greatest Christmas songs ever, and it was just exciting to learn about the songwriter, her dad Philip, and talk about the film. Tamar, thank you so much for speaking with me about this film.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start with this. At what point did you decide that you wanted to do this film on your father, who, he's best known for Santa Baby, but what a career he's had.
Yes, I decided I would say a little somewhere in towards the beginning of the pandemic. I was archiving and collecting all of the material that he had saved in his 80 plus year career and just sort of organizing it. And he had saved everything: sheet music, newspaper articles, DVDs, VHSs, so much content from the 19, I mean, from his high school even. And, I had one of my goals has always been to promote my father's catalog of songs beyond Santa Baby. And I was actually getting ready to produce a show. And that show is called The Bells of Notre Dame. And then COVID happened. So we actually had auditions set up. I had a musical director, and that was canceled. So during COVID, I was collecting all of this material. And when people were starting to do things again, I looked at what I had and I had a light bulb moment go off in my head. I said, this is a story that needs to be told. And the story covers iconic artists of the 20th century. It covers decades of the music industry, changing genres, the evolution of a lot of different changes in the industry itself. And I said, I've got a story. It is actually historical. It's about my father, but it's about so much more. And it's really a multi-layered story. And it was that light bulb moment when I was archiving.
No, that's the first revelation. The other revelation was that you wound up making the film yourself. Can you talk to me how you came to that conclusion that you were going to be the one to do it? Because this is your first feature, so this is kind of a bold step into it. How did you decide to do it, and what made you the best person to tell your dad's story?
Yes. So the moment I had the idea, I knew I was going to make the film. Now, obviously, I needed a lot of help from people who, have different specialties in the film industry, and that there's a lot I needed to learn. But I really felt that I was uniquely qualified to tell the story because I lived the story, and I saw my father's life in musical chapters. And I started calling friends who were professionals in the film industry and asked a lot of questions. I studied three act structure. I studied a lot. And I wrote an outline for the film. And all of that content that I mentioned that I'd collected and organized, I started to I made a Dropbox and I started to put the content in each of the musical chapters. And you've seen the film. I don't want to give away too much, but I sort of assigned this, certain content to this part of his life. Another content, he went to Columbia University and wrote varsity shows. That was an obvious place where that particular content would go. And I had a very professional editing company. I had consultants in the film industry look at the first few rough cuts and give me advice. And one of my friends even took the first rough cut and moved some things around and put it in a position where I could see what it needed. And so even it was collaborative, but I think I really had to be the one to direct and write it because of my proximity to the story.
Well, I think it added quite a lot to the movie that you did that because it's a very personal story, and it's not what's said, but you can feel the love and care that you provided for the movie. So I thought you did a great job being your first time. Um, how long did it take for you to complete the movie, and what was that whole process like?
It took 2.5 years from start to finish. The first year was sort of slow. I worked with an editor about every 2 weeks. sometimes every week. And, we took a break for the holidays. And after about a year, I had the first rough assembly cut. And I took that rough assembly cut and showed it to two film friends who are in the film industry, a husband and wife. And one of them is actually a producer and a director. And so, and the wife in this couple is an actress and a singer and highly creative, and also really, has a lot of production experience as well. And they watched the film, and I felt that I had something good because the woman was squeezing my hand the whole time she watched it and cried the whole way through. And the man, who was, really a professional producer, said, "I can't believe you did this, and like this is rough, but you're not a filmmaker and you did this." So they were highly encouraging, and that's the guy who sort of changed some things around and shortened it a tiny bit and set it up for me to continue developing it. And that took another year. And then I would say the last 5 months, I was working very closely with a professional editor from Cut and Run, which is a world-known editing company. And they do mostly commercials, but they've just started making short films. And one of the executive producers of the film, Steve Gandolfi, he's cut several short films now. And he's, luckily for me, he's a good friend of mine. And I did, a lot of these people were people that I know in my social community. And Steve said to me, "Okay, it's ready. We're going to take it in." Because the first rough cut he sent me home, he said, "You've got a lot of work to do." But finally, a year later, he took it into his company and assigned an editor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people might be surprised. They think 2.5 sounds like a lot of time, but that's really not. A lot of films take a while, but you always want to get it right, and it's really paid off with your film. Um, the first critic we're going to talk about is, what did your dad think about the film when he finally showed it to him, and at what point did you show him the film?
So for a long time, he didn't want to see the film.
Oh.
Yeah, I think he didn't want to go through the emotions of looking back on his life and remembering everything and being reminded and maybe seeing himself as a young man. And he didn't want to see it, but along the way, he did look at a couple of the segments. You've seen the film, he looked at high
Mhm.
school and he looked, I think, at Columbia. And at that point, he said, "How did you do this?" He's like, "This is great. How did you do it?" And so he just saw that little bit. And this January, a lot of things happened in our lives that, we lived in the Palisades, that just a lot of things changed for us. And one day I said, "Dad, I know you don't want to see the film, but would you look at the trailer? And just, I just want to show you the trailer." And he said, "Tip," he calls me Tip, that's my nickname. He said, "Tip, I'm a changed man. I'm going to see the film. I want to see it." And he was 98 at that time. He's 99 now. So I ran home, got my iPad, came back, because at 98 or 99, you do things right away. And he watched, he was looking very closely. He was totally engrossed in it the whole time. And at the end, he sat back and he said, "This is astounding. How did you do this?"
Wow.
And I felt that was a huge blessing from
How
him.
nervous were you watching him watch your film?
I wasn't. I mean, the
Oh.
only parts I was nervous about, which you might remember from watching it, was when I hint at some of the more challenging aspects of his personality. And I was a little worried about that, but it didn't seem to bother him because he really was pleased, I think, with what he saw.
So we'll start with the more than part of the film, and the remarkable things is just the people he's worked with. In our area, there's two people who lived here, is Frank Sinatra and Elvis. Wow, that's really amazing. Can you talk about each of the songs that he wrote for them, starting with Frank, Old Blue Eyes?
Frank recorded "How Little It Matters, How Little We Know." And it's just a beautiful song. And it was actually one of Frank's favorites. He chose it for his album that's called Sinatras, meaning Sinatra chose Sinatra songs. And it was on that album, and it was on a few other of Sinatra's albums. And we know he loved it. And my dad did meet him a few times, and he thanked him for the song. They weren't friends, but they were friendly and ran into each other a few times. So we know that. And actually, I ran into Frank Sinatra Jr. on an airplane once. And
Oh,
I got my courage up and I went up and introduced myself. And he said, and he wasn't super friendly, but he, and, he spoke to me and he said, "Oh," he said, "I know that song." He said, "I love that song. I sing it in my shows." And I
oh,
thought, wow, because he used to go around singing Sinatra songs. Uh,
right.
so
Wow.
that was quite a compliment. So that was
Yeah.
Sinatra. And Elvis Presley recorded Never Ending, which is not a super well-known Elvis song, although it is well-known in Elvis communities. We know it's played at Graceland and during Elvis Week, at in Memphis and all over Europe. I have a few Elvis tribute artists, friends. One of them was in the film, and they sing it all over. So it's sort of a fan favorite called Never Ending, and it was on the Double Trouble movie soundtrack of Elvis's and on an album called The Lost Album.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So,
That's
we always hope that there's these waves of interest in vintage everything. And so, I always hope that these songs will come about and have another life to them.
yeah. Um, when you made this movie, you did a lot of research. What did you learn about your dad that maybe you didn't know before?
Well, I actually discovered several recordings that of famous people that I didn't know recorded his songs. Frankie Avalon was one of them. Frankie
Wow.
Avalon was a huge star in this country, and he recorded a song called Welcome Home Baby, which was a hit in England, and it was recorded by several artists. And I had no idea that he recorded that song. And other names just came up. I mean, some of them I knew about, like Aretha Franklin, and he had three Kiki D songs. She was a very popular English recording artist. So
She worked on my favorite Elton John song, "Don't Go Breaking My Heart."
yes,
That's
great
so I'm
song.
it was great to find out about that because I'm always intrigued by her in that song, and I was like, oh wow, he wrote. Well, I knew about the one song, but I didn't know there's three. So that's to me that's really remarkable.
Yes, yes. So that several of his songs were actually hits in the UK, and I knew about one of them, which was The Next Time, which it was number one in England, recorded by Sir Cliff Richard. And but he had other hits in the UK, and I think that was one thing when I delved into it that he and his writing partner Buddy Kaye, a lyricist, they actually had quite a bit of success in the UK.
Hmm. You know, I've been to a lot of Coachellas, and what I always like is the music, the musicality, and the music knowledge from the British artists. I think they're great. They have great taste in music and they create great art. So it just makes sense that your dad had he's appreciated it in Great Britain because I love their music sensibilities.
Yes, I agree. There's a certain dimension to their artistry. I think that's
Hmm.
very special.
Oh yeah, and you see in the artists, you're talking about Amy Wine today, Amy Winehouse, Florence the Machine,
Hmm.
Adele, and there's just so many great artists coming out of there,
Yes,
and it's
yes,
just
yeah.
you kind of see that musicality, that relationship that
Hmm.
your
Yes,
dad fits right in.
yeah, he really did. And Robbie Williams, who's
Oh yeah.
a gem in the UK, and Robbie actually recorded Santa Baby.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, it's one of two times we've allowed minor lyric changes to accommodate the gender.
Oh.
So Robbie Williams is so popular. I felt that was quite a an honor, along with Michael Bublé, the other man that's recorded Santa Baby.
Pretty impressive. That's a pretty high bar for the guys.
Yes.
So let's go with Santa Baby. Uh, what's it like when Christmas time comes around and Santa Baby has its run? What's that like for you and your family around that time? I mean, to me, it sounds like it'd be really exciting. And
It's there's very fun aspects. And for example, just tonight I went into Erewhon, the supermarket. I
uh-huh.
actually had been in there in months and months. And when I walked in, Santa Baby was playing. And it's kind of like you're walking in the store with a secret, you know, and you see people humming it, and that's fun. And I always get several texts and emails from friends. Oh, it's always the first time I've heard Santa Baby this season. So they'll tell me that and where they were. And that's just, sort of a fun thing that happens, those kinds of messages. And then the a little more difficult part is that I manage the licensing for Santa Baby, and there's many of these that are last minute and urgent. So I get a lot of urgent emails for a TV show or something that they must have been planning for months and months and months, but it's urgent. I've got to answer by tomorrow. So there's that too, but it's a nice blessing. It's a good thing to have to handle.
Sounds like these producers have forgot one important thing is getting the licensing.
Right, right.
Um, I was joking with you before we came on the air. It's like when I heard the introduction part of the movie, when you said, people ask two questions. One of them is, "What else has your dad done?" It kind of reminded me of About a Boy, because Hugh Grant, in the film, he's the son of a songwriter who wrote a very popular Christmas song, kind of your situation. Do people bring that up to you, and what's that like?
They do bring it up. They'll call me Hugh Grant, or they'll say, "Oh, that's your life," and it's usually with humor and a smile, and it's fun. These sort of pop culture, situations or movies, whatever the pop culture, something iconic. It's sort of fun to have even a little association with it. So it's sort of just like a fun thing that happens, and I always take it positively. And yeah, so it's nice.
Now, the original person who sang it was Eartha Kitt, who a lot of people might know as Catwoman in the '60s television series Batman. With you, there's been so many covers and renditions of it. I'm not going to ask you what your favorite one is, but let's say, what are some of the ones that you would kind of highlight that for people to check out? Because maybe there's some that they didn't know this artist covered it, or someone did something unique that kind of
Mhm.
separates it from the others. What are some highlight performances that you can think of off the top of your head?
Well, yes, you're right. I don't play favorites because
Hmm.
really we and I appreciate all of them. And,
Hmm.
there's just some really incredible artists that have recorded it. And I will mention Cher. Cher recorded it in 2023, and it was her first Christmas album in all of her career. I mean,
Wow.
Cher's been working for, since the age of time, and that was her first Christmas album. And I can't remember. She had 10 to 12 songs on it, maybe 12 or so. And half of them were original and half of them were the old classics. And she chose Santa Baby. And there's amazing songs in that club to choose from. So that was a tremendous honor. And Cher actually called my dad. Um,
Oh.
right after the Christmas season, and I have a recording of them talking. You can see my dad and you can hear her voice. And anywhere you were in the world, you would know that was Cher's voice. They thanked each other. They talked about what it's like being artists, what it's like to get older in this industry. It was really amazing. So Cher was incredible. Alicia Keys, same thing. Her very first Christmas album in a more than 20-year career, she chose Santa Baby not only to record it for the album, she titled her album Santa Baby.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was a huge honor. And I mean, the list really goes on. Kelly Clarkson, Kelsey Ballerini, Gwen Stefani. We've got Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood recorded it together. So I guess there is another man. Kelly Pickler's country version is very popular. These days, I hear Laufey's version. It's very unique. It's a straight cover, which is what we want. We do not allow lyric changes for the most part, with very, very few exceptions. But there's something about the arrangement that's really special. So I know I've forgotten some people because there's so many, but every single artist that comes along that records it, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and they're all my favorites. And I
It,
think I think on this topic, we really owe thanks to Madonna
Oh,
because Madonna recorded Santa Baby in 1987. And she recorded it for the first very special Olympics album. So all the
mm,
proceeds for of that album, the mechanical sales, went to the Special Olympics Foundation.
oh,
And after Madonna recorded it, Santa Baby sort of got a like a kickstart into another sort of stratosphere. That's when everybody started recording it one after the other. And
wow.
so if Madonna's listening, Madonna, thank you. And the other person that had covered it before Madonna during the years was Mae West. And, she's a fabulous artist from the golden age, mostly, and just a wonderful, really unique lady. And she recorded it too. So, I could go on and on with
Yeah,
this.
well, I mean, it's so fun just hearing how many people cover it, and I mean, if the way it sounds like if you're gonna do a Christmas album, you can't do one without having Santa Baby on it.
Well, we prefer that. But even when I look at albums and they don't have Santa Baby, the new ones, I love all of those old classic songs. I mean, I sing Christmas songs all month, and it's really a privilege that my father and Joan Javitz's song is in that club that you can't get into anymore. Even if
Mhm.
you write a hit Christmas song today, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or this point forward, it will never be in, White Christmas, Santa Baby, Jingle Bells, those classics that come from that era. That's a
Mhm.
closed door and a certain number. And it's a really
Mhm.
special group.
When you did the Q&A, I was hoping you could repeat this again. You're sticklers about people not change the lyrics. Can you, and I remember you talked a little bit about that during the Q&A after the screening here in Palm Springs. Can you go over that again? Why that's important that you don't let people change too much of it? And, how I remember is you want the purity of the song and the feel of the song. Can you expand on that? And because I'm just doing it by memory, but you said it so eloquently. Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, my father became the publisher of Santa Baby in 1981. When he was a writer in the Brill Building, there was something called it was SBA, Songwriters. It might have been a Protection Act. I'm not sure, but it was the SBA songwriter contract, and copyrights reverted to the writers after 28 years. And when my father became the publisher, he felt it was very important to protect Santa Baby in its original form and promote it that way in its playful, yes, flirtatious, but still really a family friendly song that even children loved. And he didn't want people to take it and make it something else. And, we've really respected that for years and years. And when I started taking over the song, I continued that tradition. And we've not allowed associations that are vulgar or just not really okay, like drug use and alcohol and suicide. And
Mhm.
we've had turned down major contracts to keep the song in its playful family friendly form. And while there are some violations out there that we need to deal with in a legal way, for the most part, I believe that my father was successful, and it has made Santa Baby a timeless holiday favorite.
It certainly is. I'm going to refer back to the Q&A for another thing. There's something bittersweet about this film, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, but the Palisades fire, and it took out, I believe, was it both your home and your dad's home? Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that and how this really became a blessing in terms of preserving a lot of the memories that might have been lost?
Yes, so it is true. It was my condominium and my parents' home, which was my childhood home. They had it for 53 years. Also, my significant others, two mobile homes, and countless friends lost
Mm.
their homes. And worse than your own home burning down is your entire town burning down, your community not being there, and your entire way of life just has to change involuntarily. So, that's been rough to deal with. Somehow my father is still hanging in there. He's creating music. He rehearsed the show that you saw. the musicians and the singers, and he created the lead lines. And thankfully, I had finished the content of the film about a month before the fires. So I had the story, and I had it in film form, and I had digitized a lot of the content that I mentioned. Not everything. There were a lot of irreplaceable historical musical documents and archives that are burned that we'll never be able to find again. But I had finished the film. I had scanned a lot of stuff, and so thankfully, I was able to proceed with getting the story out there and getting the film in film festivals. And it's been in five and it's won four awards. So, yeah, I mean, and also the timing of this year being the year to promote the film has also been a great counter to all of the disaster recovery bureaucracy that you have to do. And I just, as the manager, it seems, of everything in the family, I seem to manage all of it. So promoting the film has been my fun and my reward, and really just the greatest joy and light and connections that have come from doing so.
So just so people know, this is a documentary short. It's around the 40-minute range.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
I
it's
work for a film
39.
fest. I work for a film festival. Sometimes people take their shorts to make them feature length. Has there been any thoughts about maybe expanding this in the future, or because I mean, you have a great film, not to change anything, but there's also I feel like there's you've touched on so much that there's a lot of information that could also be expanded. Has there been a thought about maybe adding to this film or doing something else, or do you think this is pretty much done as is?
If somebody wanted me to, I certainly would consider doing so. And I've had that discussion with a few people who are helping promote the film.
Hmm.
So let's say there was um, a streaming service that wanted a closer to an hour version from the 39 and a half minutes. I certainly would be very open to exploring that, and I've thought about it. So yes, I would, but I'm also very happy with the way the story is told in this format. And the film is absolutely my passion project, and it's a wonderful thing, but I also see it as a springboard to promoting the music.
Hmm.
And what I'd really like to see is a stage show more than Santa Baby, maybe an album, but taking some of these lesser known songs and doing more with them.
Hmm.
So it's sort of yes and yes. I'm open to all of the possibilities.
Yeah, when we were talking earlier about the Elvis and the Sinatra song, as I kind of listening a little bit to them, I was just like, man, these would be perfect for a lot of movies. Uh,
Yes, and absolutely. And also with Frank Sinatra, so many films have New York, New York, or
mhm.
Witchcraft. These are wonderful songs. Witchcraft, the lyric writer of Witchcraft, by the way, was my father's partner on How Little It Matters, How Little We Know. Um, so I feel like they need a new Frank Sinatra song in these films, you know. So and how little we know is a beautiful song. I mean, it's a great song. So yeah, that's what I see.
Well, this has been a treat. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. It was a pleasure to meet you, to work with you. I was her videographer for her screening at in Palm Springs, and just learning about you, about your dad, about you, and just this wonderful song that's warms everyone's hearts during this time of year. Uh, Thank you again, Tamara. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And
Thank you. I appreciate your interest so much, and it was great fun to meet you and work with you.